Trauma is different than stress. Recently, I was privileged to hear from Diana Hendel when I attended EntreCon, a business development and leadership development conference in Pensacola, Florida, this year held virtually. Diana was CEO of a healthcare company when a workplace shooting event took place. In the wake of that, Diana became an expert, a student of organizational trauma, and she talks about the ways that trauma is different than stress and the way that leaders need to respond to traumatic events. Stress is temporary. When we deal with stressful situations, we have a sense that although things are difficult, things will get back to normal. We'll get through them. When we deal with trauma, it's different. We have a realization that things may never be the same again. We have the realization that there's a before and there's an after. The way that leaders need to lead organizations or communities through traumatic experiences then is also fundamentally different. This year has been one unlike many others that we know of, and taken individually, many of the things that happened this year could be stressful. We've got natural disasters, we've got political upheavals, we've got racial injustice, we've got this pandemic that has fundamentally changed the ways that we live, work, interact, and every aspect of our lives. But taken together, these sure look a lot like trauma. How often have you heard someone say, before COVID or after we get to the new normal? These are telltale signs that what we're dealing with is something more like trauma. So I was very interested to hear from Diana and what she had to say about how organizations deal with trauma and how leaders need to lead through trauma to get folks to the other side. In the beginning of not just this event, but trauma situations, you have a lot of camaraderie. You have folks working together towards a common purpose. But if leadership is not intact, then that can devolve into blaming. That can deteriorate into trying to pin this on someone. What if you had done this? Why didn't you see this coming? It's important in trauma situations for leaders to remain visible and for leaders to bridge those gaps as much as possible, to stay away from this kind of divergence, this kind of coalition infighting that is so typical with trauma. I would encourage you, if you're interested in the subject, to listen to the Busy Leader podcast where Quint Studer interviews Diana, or pick up her book, which is Responsible, a memoir of her time at the hospital and what she learned then and afterwards. What we're going through together is not like anything many of us have been through before, and it will be a watershed moment. It'll be something that our kids ask about and our grandkids ask about. It'll be something that we're already talking about in terms of before and after. So it's important to remember to be kind to ourselves, be kind to each other, because this is not just a stressful year. This is a traumatic year. And the way that we're going to get through it together is fundamentally different than the way we've gotten through most things in our lives. So pay attention, stay tuned to those who know about trauma and know about getting through trauma in a positive way, how to deal with trauma, and I'm confident that we'll get through this with a stronger, more vibrant community